Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Watari-kun's It's About to Collapse, Season 1, Episode 5. Great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, Naoto immediately asks some of Yukari's friends about the whole Fujioka thing, and it's like, oh yeah, they dated back in the day, and apparently they broke up when he graduated. So they're thinking like, oh my god, Fujioka and her meeting now must mean like they must be like trying to rekindle the flames. And Naoto is kind of very self-conscious about this because he's like, this guy's so awesome and amazing, I can't stack up and compare. In fact, he runs into him when he goes back to like the place they're staying, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to see Fujioka. Fujioka's like, I'm going to go see Yukari, and he seems like such a nice guy. He's like got this brimming aura about him. It's like makes Naoto feel even more insecure. But the problem is he got so caught up in all that he completely forgot he was supposed to go swimming with Satsuki, and her way to get back at him is to make him fill up her boobs and then walk away. But she was like mainly doing it to tease him because she's like, that's a little bit of her revenge, you know. Because once again, it's for her, it's better to kind of get him to like touch or see something rather than kind of like, if she's not in control of what he sees and does, it catches her off guard, you know. But either way, the storyline with Yukari and Fujioka isn't as dark as I thought it'd be. It's a little dark, but not to the extent, because last episode, I won't reiterate everything I went down the route, but I was referencing the manga series Good Ending. And without going into it, like basically the main female protagonist, her trauma, I've wondered if something similar happened to Yukari between her and Fujioka. I was wondering if it was something like that. There's tiny bits of elements that overlap, but for the most part, they are a completely different situation. I figured they would be, because I didn't think the series would go that route, but I was like, it could be a possibility. So, once again, look up Good Ending or GE Good Ending if you're curious of what I'm talking about. I mean, I recommend if you're able to track down the manga to read it. I think it's a really good, like, romantic drama. But either way, tangents and all that aside, Fujioka shows himself to be kind of a little like, well, this guy kind of won't like, because Yukari isn't speaking her mind. She's very soft-spoken and very meekish. And so she's like, oh no, I don't want, because she learns like they're all going to meet up later on to eat. But like Fujioka was kind of like, well, I'm going to go here and we can talk. He's like, I don't really have time to talk now, but we can go. It's like he's cut her off. Like he's purposely doing that. You could tell. I was like, that's not by accident. It's like you're purposely doing that because you know she won't put up too much resistance. But he's like, yeah, let's meet me at this dinner at like 7 or whatever, diner at 7 or whatever. And then like, you know, we'll talk then. But yeah, like Toki and them were like supposed to go out eat at a particular place. And Satsuki confronts Yukari about everything, because it's like Toki was that like basically gave her two things to talk about. It's like I forgot what the first one was, but the second one was like he wanted me to let you know that Naoto is basically stressing out about whatever history you and Fujioka have. And nearby, some guys were talking about like, oh, you and, you know, Satsuki are dating. He's like, no, we're not. We're just childhood friends. It's like, oh, then I should make a move. She seems like the type that will probably go out with anyone, you know, who puts up enough, like, you know, effort. But he was like, yo, she's not like that. And they're like, oh, and he's trying to, oh, but I mean, we're just friends. I mean, I don't even know her that well either. But he's like, I don't think she's like the easy type you're making out her to be. And they're like, yeah, sorry about that. It's kind of like sleazy, just assume like, yeah, she's kind of easy. Like if you put forth enough effort, she'll kind of cave. And I think for Satsuki, knowing he like sticks up for her like that, because I think that's where she kind of gets into later on, and we'll explore it more then too, of it seems like despite their past, he decided to stick up for her even though there is a complicated history there. And obviously that just makes things harder for Yukari, because for her it just feels that just confirmation bias in her part of he cares for Satsuki. So it's like, how can I ever really know, like, you know, especially later on when Fujioka was like, oh, you're into someone. Well, who's to say that person, are you the only person in his heart? And like that cuts deep because she thinks he has feelings for Satsuki, which he does. Like, it's complicated. There's complicated history there versus like him and Yukari. Like, you know, he's admired her and like really like cares for Yukari and just had feelings for her for a while. But once again, like despite them, like him and Satsuki have history. Like they grew up together, and just like she liked him back then, he liked her too, and that all got muddied after everything went down and like not seeing her for 6 years. So, but either way, she makes it clear. She's like, I've never dated any guy excluding Fujioka. So it's like, okay, and Satsuki tries to say that to like some of her friends, and they're like, no, that's not true. Yeah, of course they dated. I was like, so is he the one spreading that? And we see when she's at dinner with him and she flashes back, she like was like, I'm sorry, like I can't, and she ran away from him, didn't make it clear. But then like the next day she wanted to try and talk to him. Her friends are like, oh my God, I didn't know you guys were dating. You should have told us. And he never bothered correcting them. He was like, yeah, we should walk home every day together. And she was just so soft-spoken. Like we don't know if there's anything deeper. It could just be like that's her personality, but it could stem from something else. The reason she feels, I mean, to be fair, speaking your mind and speaking your feelings isn't the easiest thing, because you could just be a bashful person by comparison. I'm very much like that. I'm not good at telling people how I really feel or what's really on my mind. So it doesn't necessarily mean, it's not an indication of like anything for your past is the reason for that. It could just be that's who you are by nature. And so, yeah, like she was kind of forced to play the role, and they never because they never really dated, so they never really broke up. But it's like she tried to break things off because he was about to graduate, but he's like, hey, I'm graduating, but the fact is I haven't given up on you. I'll make you mine. I'm like, wow, this guy is persistent. And it's like he has this Prince Charming effect to himself because his dad's like a director of a hospital or whatever, something like that. Like he's a big time doctor, but I think he was like specifically like the director of a hospital maybe. But he's the only son, so he comes from money and a powerful position. So I don't know if that inflated his ego to be as egotistical as he is, to kind of think like when he wants something, he goes for it and doesn't take no for an answer. But also he doesn't allow Yukari to say no, even though like it's clear she's uncomfortable, and he makes sure to cut her off so she can't say no. But it's like he's living in his own world where everything goes his way, because in his mind is like, Yukari, you're the perfect woman. You're the best woman for me. Like, I'm the best fit for you. So when Yukari was just kind of like not wanting to deal with him, she ran away again, just needed time away. And he's like, oh, I tried to call her, but she won't answer, but immediately answers when Toki calls. And I think that kind of stung a little. But it's like now it's like Toki was like, I lied and said that she was fine and she was by herself and she just needed a day or two, which even like he was like, give her 2 or more days or whatever, and he was like, I'll be back tomorrow morning. It's like, Jesus, dude, take a effing hint. But they send Naoto after her, which you can tell like bothers it bothers Satsuki, because it feels like 1 step forward, 2 steps back with her. Like every time it feels like she's making some progress with him, and maybe they're good, and maybe like what we have is something there. It's not just on my side of things. It feels like she's losing this. Like every time they take a step forward, she takes 2 steps back. He's taken 2 or 3 steps closer to Yukari. And so she's a little frustrated, because she's asked, like, Taoki's like, oh, should I not have made him go alone? But she's like, I don't care, like, it has nothing to do with me. And then she takes a bath, and just thinking about that and calling him a jerk because of that. So it's kind of like rather, because it's almost like he looked to her for, like, permission, like, kind of almost like, oh, what should I do? So it feels a little like, oh, you're asking me, it's, there's 2 ways to kind of look at it. Like, you could be like, Satsuki is like, oh, you're asking me, your mistress, to ask you how you should, like, handle things with your wife. Or you're asking me, your wife, what to do when you need to run off and make things good with your mistress. Like, it kind of has that vibe. Like I said, she feels like she's kind of being toyed with a little bit in that regard. So it is a sad situation of, like, it's a complicated thing of, I don't think he has feelings for Satsuki, but I think they haven't really bubbled to the surface. Like, his feelings for Yukari are a lot clearer for him, but it's his lack of self-confidence, believing he's not good enough, that she's way out of his league, that really bottles him down. And I think he just doesn't actively look at Satsuki that way. There's moments where it sparks up, but for the most part, in his mind, it's like, no, it's perfectly clear that I like Yukari. It's unclear how he feels about Satsuki in totality, because he is friendly enough with her despite their complicated past, But anyway, like I said, I'll get into that later. He ends up tracking her down and he calls her on Toki's phone and he's like, no, like, let me know where you are because he's like, he runs into her and he's like, I could tell by your voice you're sad. And just as the truck passes by, like her hair blows away and you see like tears out of her eyes. And she tries to run away, because, and, she feels pathetic because it's just kind of like this misunderstanding that's blown out of proportion and she just wanted time to kind of think to herself, and now it's just once again like she just can't help but think there's something going on between Satsuki and him, and it's just all that's bubbling up. And so she tries to run away, but like her shoe gets messed up and he's like, oh, let me give you a piggyback ride, I don't want you walking on your feet. And so he's like, whatever's going on between you and Fujioka, like is that what you're stressing about? And then she's like, all right, let me tell you what it is. I've never dated him. So I guess he was nearby, but I guess he never heard that part of the conversation. Or maybe he did, because like Satsuki was saying that and he was nearby, but it might be a thing of, he probably took her friend's words at face value being like, oh no, like it's, they totally dated, so he probably thought like, oh, maybe it's just a misunderstanding on Satsuki's part. But for Yukari to point that out, to be like, yes, I've always had a tough time telling people how I think and how I feel. She's like, I'm tired of just kind of like going along with what people want. I want to be able to say what I want and tell the person I'm in love with how I really feel about them, And then ultimately, Fujioka, along with some of her friends, and because he was like, yo, like she's going missing or whatever. So even though Toki was like, yo, leave her alone, and he's like, oh, I'll stop by this morning, he went out of his way to be like, oh, let's get this posse together so I can find her sooner. So, oh yeah, like I'm so glad you're okay. And then Naoto steps in and was like, yo, like you kind of misconstrued the situation. It's like you and her never dated. And then everyone's like, what are you talking about? Of course they did. And it's not until Yukari steps up and it's like, no, like nothing ever happened between us. We never dated. I didn't like you then. I don't like you now. Like, I actually never want to see you again. And he's kind of shocked. And I thought that would be enough. Nah, who he really is at that moment, is what really, like, should you be defined by your the worst day in your life? In this case, yes, because it's shown a very controlling pattern that he has where it's like, I'm never going to give you a chance to speak. Like he dictates so much of like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And she just goes along with it and she's not doing that anymore. And so when it's all said and done, he gets pissy and he grabs her arm. He's like, you're going to shut up and you're going to go with me. And you're showing everyone your ugly side. Like, wow, you're not the guy we thought you were. But also, maybe he didn't say it loud enough. So who knows what the people that are there with him see. Because they go, oh my God, Fujioka senpai. Like, they kind of saw like, oh. So, because they, regardless of whether they heard that side of the conversation or not, whether he said that loud enough, whether they were able to see position-wise him grabbing her arm. I mean, the fact is that Satsuki comes out of nowhere and needs him in the back, I think is indicative of they probably did see it. So they already saw like, why didn't you ever correct us then, Fujioka? You're the one that kind of led us onto the assumption you guys were dating and you never were? That's weird. Why would you do that? And also you're grabbing on her, telling her to shut up. But yeah, like Satsuki knees him in the back and was like, yo, you're an asshole. You're a dick. And I forgot. He was like, yeah, I'm going to back down for today, which, is indicative that he's not giving up. But then he tries to throw shade at her and be like, Yukari, you're not the ideal woman I thought you were. It's like, okay, cool. Then move on then, my guy. The fact is that you're still hanging on even though she's not your ideal woman. It's because it's like, no, you want her and you won't take no for an answer. But the whole experience did help Yukari grow because she feels more confident going forward now. She's like, if he ever shows up again, don't worry, I'll handle it. I'll put him in his place. And the whole thing kind of just, because Toki brings up like, oh, you and Yukari and Naoto have gotten closer. It just rubs more salt in the wound. Even though like Satsuki was trying to do the right thing, but really quickly, she caught, like, because she still had Toki's phone, and there was a phone call, and he was like, oh, did you see the caller ID? And she's like, it's none of my business. I wonder if the person he called it, because he has enough history here to know everyone. Like, I don't know how close he was to Fujioka, but it might just, like, he was close enough to Yukari, so he might have. I get the feeling like he might have called Fujioka's dad. I don't know. I get that feeling because I'm like, who else would it be? Like, who's this mystery person, and why would that be an issue? Especially her being like, it's none of my business. I get the feeling it's probably Fujioka's dad. That's my immediate thought, but I have really no idea who else it could be other than that. So, but Yukari and Satsuki end up talking, and Yukari's like, thank you for showing up. But she's like, I didn't do it for you. I did it for Naoto because like he probably like wouldn't have done anything in that situation. But she's also like, because she's like, you almost can't count on him in that situation. But it's like, no, like he like was there for me and kind of made me feel more confident. She's like, he might not be every aspect of my ideal man, but he accepted me and my shortcomings. So I want to accept everything about him. So she's like, when I get back, I'm going to confess to him. And Sasuke's like, go ahead. I don't know why that has anything to do with me. And she's like, I'm not going to lose to you. Because regardless of whether Naoto can see it and she's not really sure how Naoto feels about Satsuki, she knows how Satsuki feels about Naoto. Because I think she sees a little bit of a kindred spirit of, we both like the same guy. So I can see it. Like, even though you're probably better at hiding it than I am, I still see it and feel it from you. So they sit down and eat. Well, because Naoto shows up with some like snacks or whatever, some like rice balls. And for her, as I was bringing up earlier, there's the tug and pull where she's just kind of like, it's unfair because it's like, you obviously still blame me and harbor a lot of issues towards me because of what happened 6 years ago. But then at the same time, you're also extremely nice to me. And that nicety is such a half-hearted thing that hurts more because it makes me, she's like, you're the one that's making me believe I have a chance to like make up for the past, but also like that there's something here, that it isn't just me feeling this way, that you feel the same way too. And it's super unfair to me if you're kind of basically stringing me along. So she kisses him and says like, basically, you need to stop being nice to me because if you don't, I'm basically going to end up destroying something else that you care about. So like you and Yukari, it's like you keep being nice to me, I'm going to misinterpret it and I'm going to basically wreck what you have just so that I could have you. So you'll be like, it's almost like I want to make you unhappy and ruin things between you and Yukari just for, not that I'm going to, but I don't think she'd intentionally do it. It's so interesting because she does try to paint herself as the bad guy because I think it is her way to kind of shield herself from whatever went down all those years ago, whoever it was that convinced her for whatever reason to do what she did all those years ago to the garden, but also to shield herself from like getting hurt again, you know? Especially because like she's never, like, just like Fujioka, the difference between her and Fujioka is like we both have been longing after someone. He's been longing after, you know, Yukari for like the wrong reasons because it's coming from a place of I want you to be mine and I will like, you know, I'll do whatever I have to manipulate you into that. You can make an argument there's a little bit of that with Satsuki, but it's mainly, and it's something I've stressed before because Taoki's the same way. I will care for you and have my feelings for you, but if you're happier with someone else, I will just like not get in the way. So don't be nice to me, just like let's kind of keep things separate. So what does that mean going forward if you keep that mentality? Because you're promising to help out with the garden, so are you going to abandon that, you know, or you're just gonna be like, hey, like we'll just platonically work on the garden, but other than that, let's not walk to school together, don't be nice to me, don't like, we won't interact at school, we'll act like strangers. That might be Satsuki's way of things, and that might eventually kind of wear on Naoto because it's just like, right, like I kind of had already go 6 years without you in my life and I was sort of fine, but I had all this other stuff to deal with, and then you come back in my life and you brought good into my life despite the complications, and now you want to just bail from my life again. I'm not going to go through that again, you know? So it's not only Yukari that needs to be a little bit more honest about what they're feeling and what they're doing. Like, she's partially honest, but she's not saying everything for whatever reason. And so the same thing for Naoto, like he's not fully honest with his feelings either, you know. So it's a very, very complicated mess. I'm curious to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, especially with the trip being over and like what Yukari's going, like made it clear, but it's like, will she be able to muster up the courage? Will Satsuki try to sabotage that, or will it be a thing of, like I said, she'll take a step back, but that'll force Naoto to kind of trying to reach out to her more, which is just going to complicate things more with Yukari. It's a lot. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.